So much of left wing thought is a kind of playing with fire by people who don't even know that fire is hot. The words of George Orwell. If you know Orwell at all, you know that his politics were nuanced. You know that they ranged from one side to the other over the course of his life. The one thing that I respect about Orwell is his intellectual honesty. When he was presented with evidence that the side he may have advocated for at one time no longer had the moral high ground, he was perfectly willing to change his opinion. Can't really say that for a lot of people on either side of the fire these days. Let's look at that quote again. So much of left wing thought is a kind of playing with fire by people who don't even know that fire is hot. And never in modern American political life has that been more evident than what's been going on the ground in Minnesota over the course of the last several weeks. They are literally playing with fire. And most of these people don't even know that that fire is hot. They think it's a game, as evidenced by the fact of them coming out doing the I'm not touching you thing with the bullhorns and the cops and robbers action, as evidenced by the fact of after a shooting incident, people screaming while being recorded, why did you have real bullets? What did you think was going to happen? Who did you think you were dealing with? A lot of it is the rhetoric that they've had their heads pumped full of. And I've said it before, and you feel free to disagree, but a lot of these people are otherwise intelligent and otherwise well intentioned people, people with good hearts, people who are just misinformed and misled, and in most cases, deliberately so. These are not fighters. These are not warriors. These are not even the revolutionaries that they're cosplaying. They're good people being led into supported bad causes, and it's getting them killed. Now, you guys know that I'm an absolutist about the Second Amendment. If you feel like you have no recourse but force of arms, that is guaranteed by our Constitution to all of us. But again, it gets down to the cosplay element. You guys remember seeing pictures of this guy on social media out there protecting his neighborhood and protecting his people with the gun? But zoom in on that gun a little bit. I was all for this guy. I was like, yeah, man, right on. If that's zoom in a little bit. That's not a real AR-15. It's either an airsoft or a BB gun. Look at the top of the receiver. There's no receiver cover, and the charging handle to the rear is for show only. There's a charging handle on the side. This is either a BB gun or an airsoft gun. It's a game to them. Cops and robbers, tag, you're it. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. And it would be laughable if it weren't for the stakes being so damned high. And these otherwise well-intentioned people are being misled into situations that they had no business being in the first place. And now people are being killed because of it. Renee Good. I've already addressed it, guys. The whole, well, she around and she found out. No, man. No. Yeah, she had lapsed into mental illness. Leftism does that to people. But before she got her head twisted up with all this nonsense, she was probably a really good person. Someone who genuinely believed, however naively, in the greater good of people, that genuinely wanted to make the world a better place. But this nonsense got her head twisted up. And she found herself in a position she had no business being in the first place. And now she is no longer taking in oxygen. I don't think that's something to be celebrated. I think that's something to be mourned. Your mileage may vary. But now these same people getting twisted up with this ridiculous ideology of taking it to the next level. They raided a church. And that wasn't the first time, by the way. Churches in Minnesota have been the subject of shootings prior to this, ones that had little to do with that ideology, but were still rooted in it. We're going to get into it a little bit later, exactly what historical roots this has and where it historically leads. But again, you've got the people, the classics, the non believers that want to tell us what it is to be a real Christian, as illustrated by this meme. You know, churches are supposed to harbor criminals and communists. Jesus would have wanted it that way. I have no idea what I'm talking about, nor am I a member of any church, but I'm a single mother on SSRIs, so you must listen to me because my heart's in the right place. In any case, as a result of that, several were finally arrested. The first active law enforcement, and of course it came on behalf of the federal law enforcement officials, because no state or local official in the state of Minnesota is going to deal with these maggots. But if you want a glimpse at what real Christianity looks like, we got to see it at the Minneapolis airport. These people were clergy. Now, we can differ in opinion on the motivations. We can differ in opinion on the actions in question. But let's take this into account for a minute. These were people engaged in what really is nonviolent protest. They knelt and they prayed, blocking a sidewalk, blocking access. When the cops came to arrest them, they did not resist. They did not fight with the cops. They did not interfere with law enforcement activities at any point. They went along quietly, standing on the strength of their beliefs. That is a real peaceful protest. That, I would submit to you, is being a real Christian. But the left-wing people who are praising them right now don't exactly have that same energy when these same real Christians kneel and peacefully pray in front of an abortion clinic now, do they? Further illustrating the hypocrisy that is also going to be the focus of this Sunday. But we'll get more into that later. This was just a brief respite. This legitimate peaceful protest was a brief respite, but that ideology cost him another one this week. Alex Pretty, man who, by all indications, was a decent human being before his head got twisted up with this leftist woke ideology. He put himself in a position that he had no business being in, and as a result of it, just like Renee Good, he is no longer taking in oxygen. I think probably the most ironic picture of this man that I've seen came from back in the COVID era. Staying home saves lives. Yeah, there's that hypocrisy again. Staying home saves lives. Put on your mask. Stay home, save lives. Don't interfere with legitimate federal law enforcement. But again, rhetoric over reality, party over principle, every damn time. Propaganda machine immediately trying to paint him as a patron saint of everything that is good in the world. Who was Alex Pretty? A nurse shot dead in Minneapolis. I know about liberal nurses. I'm married to one. This breaks my heart. But my liberal nurse wife would never have put herself in this position. And as long as we're trying to deify someone for his contribution to the nursing world, I could think of another nurse that unfortunately lost her life under some very different circumstances. Laken Riley was a nurse too. And there were, as the meme points out, 0 Democrats protesting in the streets for her. There were plenty protesting for Alex Pretty, including this guy, Kyle. We've all seen him. Hi, I'm Kyle, and I'm Antifa. In the wake of the shooting, he went public with a video specifying locations and requesting that Antifa descend on said location with guns. And I quote, "It's time to stop talking and start fighting these bastards." Real tough guy, this Antifa Kyle. We've seen his other tough guy cosplay pictures. Again, it's a game to them. Here's another tough guy picture of Antifa Kyle. One more picture of Antifa Kyle. You've probably seen this one from the numerous videos making the rounds on social media. Little side of Antifa Kyle that you might not have seen. Yeah, this fella. Same Kyle. That's not photoshopped. I did the deep dive. These are all damaged people. These are all mentally ill individuals and thus more susceptible to the left wing woke ideology. And they're putting themselves, and more to the point, others, in positions that they had no business being in the first place. And as a result, people are getting killed. Now, how could that ideology twist these people up? Well, number one, as evidenced, they're damaged goods in the first place. But you've got a nonstop propaganda machine that's engaging in demonizing these people to the point of complete fabrication and making the situation worse. The word for the day is stochastic terrorism. You may or may not be familiar with that term. I'm going to give you a couple of real quick definitions. The truth lies somewhere in the middle, but here's a basic overview. Stochastic terrorism is the use of mass public communication, usually against a particular individual or group, which incites or inspires acts of terrorism, which are statistically probable but seemingly happen at random. Say, for instance, calling a law enforcement agency the Gestapo, calling a president literally Hitler, that kind of thing. And when someone, a middle case like this fella or this lady, actually act on it, the people who are engaging in demonizing these people in the first place, the perpetrators of this stochastic terrorism, can have full plausible deniability. I heard one attorney describe it as a pachinko game, if you've ever played pachinko. You flip the ball, it goes to the top, and you can't predict which pins it's going to hit on the way down, but you do know that eventually it's going to arrive at the bottom. But the stochastic terrorists sit back and say, well, we couldn't have predicted that. We were just exercising our freedom of speech. And they legitimately are. That's the damnable thing about standing on principle, is sometimes it costs you. Here's another definition. Stochastic terrorism refers to political or media figures publicly demonizing a person or group in such a way that it inspires supporters of the figures to commit a violent act against the target of the speech. Waltz, Fry, Pelosi, Biden, Harris, and every left-wing media guy who has described Trump as literally Hitler or ICE as literally the Gestapo and saying that we're fighting literally the Third Reich, and eventually people are going to act on it. Well, what's the truth? Here's the actual numbers. 3 million under Trump, 1.2, or 3 million under Obama, rather, 1.2 million under Trump. All done through the legal process, some expedited, some judicial. But the point here is taken. So maybe it's not just about numbers, maybe it's about narratives. Due process wasn't erased, it was just politicized. The criticism that I constantly hear is that, yeah, man, Obama, he may have deported more people, but it wasn't all this madness in the streets. What do you suppose that has to do with? It has to do with stochastic terrorism. Because under Obama, the media didn't call him a literal Nazi. Under Obama, they didn't call ICE the literal Gestapo. In fact, CNN did ride-alongs, talked about the great work that they were doing in protecting U.S. citizenry. Let's debunk some common deportation misinformation. And these are just facts. These are just numbers. You can read them yourselves. They have to arrest people on the streets. Tom Homan has gone on endlessly about this, and he's absolutely correct. If the sanctuary cities would turn them over, they could arrest them right there at the jail. But no, they have to go into the community because they won't cooperate with ICE. Out of 650,000 removed by ICE, 65 to 70 had committed extra crimes after coming here illegally. Things like child abuse, murder, and trafficking, and in all honesty, also minor crimes like shoplifting or DWI, but they are criminals. This isn't Jose behind the Home Depot who just, quote unquote, brought his family here looking for a better life. Only about 170 of those cases were mistaken identity. That's over 99.9% correct. And the mistakes do get fixed quickly. But the bottom line, that's the most important one. None of this would be necessary if it hadn't been for 4 years, ushering in 15 and in some cases 20, depending on whose figures you believe, unvetted. They are dealing with a problem that they didn't create. I'm reminded of Colonel Jessup in A Few Good Men. Say about that analogy what you will. But you take the protection that I provide and then question the manner in which I provide it. Well, he didn't create that problem in the first place. Here's another set of facts for you. 23% of all ICE arrests occur in Texas. 2.2% occur in Minnesota. That's a tenfold difference. Yet far more ICE-related violence is happening in Minnesota. Why? Because Democrats are promoting and provoking violence in Minnesota. The stochastic terrorism that we spoke of before. Why? Because Democrats do not hate violence. Violence is their goal. Ignore the rhetoric. Look at the action. And here's a good point. What are we told? Not only are they literally the Gestapo, but they're a bunch of untrained idiots that they're turning loose without rules of engagement. They're just a bunch of yahoos, one step above bounty hunters. But if that is the case across the board, if ICE is so untrained and out of control, how come Minneapolis is the only city that we're seeing these tragedies? Maybe it's because the leadership of Minnesota is encouraging miscreants to break the law, terrorize the city, and impede law enforcement. Meg Basham, thank you for the use of the word miscreant. It's a personal favorite. It just keeps getting deeper. Matt Walsh, say what you want. I know I know if one of my friends is here, he's not the biggest fan of Matt Walsh. But the satire, the parody that he's presenting here is pretty accurate. This is the thing. And this is more on the Republican side, because remember, Republicans voted overwhelmingly to have this done. And in poll after poll after poll, they've been very clear that they want them all gone. But once it gets thick, they don't have the stomach for it. This ICE situation is really complex. My take is more nuanced. I want our immigration laws to be enforced, but I just want them to do it without using any force and without anyone ever getting hurt and without anything sad or upsetting happening ever. And if the people we're trying to deport don't want to be deported, or if liberal activists don't want us to deport them, then obviously in that case we shouldn't do it. But I'm totally a conservative on the issue, unless people get really, really mad at me, and then never mind, please don't yell at me, I'm sorry. Yeah, conservatives, I'm calling you out. The ones who voted for this, the ones who stand behind it ideologically, that now that the optics are looking bad, and it's just the optics, not the facts, you want to back up off of it because you're worried about losing friends, because you're worried about alienating people. Where is your spine? But you're falling under pressure coming from other conservatives that are telling you if you support law enforcement now, you're a bootlicker. You're a bootlicker for the same thing that you voted for in the first place. This is more for later on. Sorry, didn't mean to belabor it here in the opener. Here's an example. And this is something. This is perfectly representative of the ideology. A friend dating back to high school has a German life partner and spends a lot of time in Germany. He's there now, and he posted that he can't take, again, that stochastic terrorist talking point. He can't take the U.S. Gestapo government anymore and is beginning the process to move there permanently. And I'm like, cool, you're there now. You're all set. He's like, no, I have to. And he lays out the process. I reply, why bother with that at all? You're there now. Just stay. He explains, well, you can't just do that. There's a process or you'll get sent back. Interesting, I say. Yeah, man. It is like that, isn't it? Now, in the wake of all this, we're hearing more and more talk about the Insurrection Act. Trump's threatening to implement it. He's got the legal and constitutional grounds to do it. Noam's backed his play. Feel how you want about her. Tears into Governor Walz as well she should. But here's stochastic terrorist in chief Tim Walz. And we all know why he's doing it. He's trying to bury the own corruption. He's trying to bury the investigation and the federal attention. But after ginning people up, saying, put your butts on the line, interfere with these activities, now that they're talking Insurrection Act, oh man, don't take the bait. Don't give them the reason. Brother, you gave them the reason. Now, eventually, if it is deployed, those same conservatives that are losing their spine and losing their stomach for it are going to say, well, yeah, man, I mean, that's just more proof that it's excessive. Thomas Sowell had a word about that. Any force sufficient to prevent riots from getting out of hand is almost certain to be characterized as excessive force or overreaction by people with zero experience trying to stop riots. Just like the armchair quarterbacks on the latest shooting and the one before it. It's going to be characterized as excessive force because you've never been in that position. And again, they think it's all a game. Cops and robbers. I'm not touching you. Maybe we have gone too far. Maybe, and I don't mean in the sense of our response, but maybe we have gone too far as a country. Maybe the divide is just too deep. If so, it's certainly regrettable. I would like to think that there's a way to pull it back from the brink, but I, in all honesty, am of the opinion that at this point it's too far gone. I'm not going to be led by blind optimism. Here's the damnable part of it and why we have reached such an impasse. You guys remember what Charlie, may rest in peace, had to say about this. When people stop talking, really bad stuff starts. When marriages stop talking, divorce happens. When civilization stops talking, civil war ensues. Here we are. When you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to want to commit violence against that group, especially when it's exacerbated by the rhetoric of stochastic terrorism. But there's another factor. Those stochastic terrorists are liars, and they know that they're liars. Liars and hypocrites. I remember a carpenter from Nazareth that called out a lot of liars and hypocrites, but that's for later in the program. This is an old proverb. It's been attributed to many people, and I couldn't nail down an actual source, but I'll give you the word. Never argue with liars. You can't win because they believe their own lies. And why wouldn't they? There's a 24/7 propaganda machine assuring them that they have the moral high ground. Those same stochastic terrorists that are saying that Trump is literally Hitler and ICE is literally the Gestapo, why wouldn't they believe their own lies? You could pray for the people who are deliberately misled, but no mercy for the people who are misleading them. Legit, demonic, Luciferian, father of lies behavior. And they know it. And they know the depth of their own hypocrisy. Wes Fessler had something to say about hypocrisy. It's the audacity to preach integrity from a den of corruption. And when you're looking at dens of corruption, you'd be hard pressed to find a better example than Minnesota right now. A web of fraud exposed by a citizen journalist because that same propaganda ministry was running cover for it. We are not dealing with objective expressions of opinions anymore. We are dealing with propaganda. And when it comes to propaganda, I suppose one side's speculation is just as good as the others. Here's what we know. Jacob Bry, Tim Walz, neck deep in it. And the Somalians that are being used as useful idiots to pull off this fraud under the leadership of white liberal women. And again, I'm not just whistling out my ass. This is something that's verified now. And that goes all the way up to the federal level. That goes up to Ilhan Omar. That goes up to the amnesty policies and the open border policies that we had for 4 years that created this problem in the first place. They know that they're days away from jail if they really got pushed. And this is the perfect thing for them. Why not gin it up? That's why you've got more tragedies like this happening only in Minnesota. Not in Texas, where they're doing 10 times the arrest. Now, the left, man, here's another thing. This has come up this week. The debate about the importance of the Second Amendment. This week, and over the past couple of weeks, the left, who have been the most staunch advocates of gun control, who say that us yahoos need to be rounded up, have our guns confiscated, and be thrown into prison, have finally discovered the importance of the Second Amendment. And good on them. Good on them. I'm an absolutist about 2A. That's for anyone. I don't waver on that. Not one jot or tittle, as the saying goes. These people are still just as ridiculous as they ever were. These cosplaying, these cosplaying Che Guevaras on the left. Same thing. We can have our disagreements, but when it comes to action, we act as a combined unit in pursuit of the common goal. But you can't criticize me, and if you do, you're dividing the left. It's one thing they have going for them. They stay on point for the long game, ideologically. I can express my thoughts because of free speech, but you can't because you're a conservative. Again, it's the same thing over and over again. And they are just as determined to usher in their authoritarian state. This is the thing. For all the grief that the stochastic terrorists throw out about authoritarianism, they don't have a problem with authoritarianism. They have a problem with authoritarianism when they aren't the ones with their hands on the switch. And now, as we'll get into later in the program, they expect us. They expect us, the gun crowd, to come and save them. Where are you, Second Amendment people? Where are you protecting yourselves from a tyrannical government, people? You got to come in and save us. Yeah, because you extended the same courtesy when you guys were putting the screws to the J6 people and putting the screws to pro-life advocates. What about principles, bro? We'll get into it later. There's a little Virginian slave owner that once said, laws that forbid the carrying of arms, and this is why I don't waver, even for those leftist lunatics, I don't waver on the Second Amendment. Laws that forbid the carrying of arms disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man. He's absolutely correct. Even if the armed man in question is, well, just holding a BB gun. They're stepping up their game. I got to give them that. But here's why it's different. When and if, God forbid, they ever get their hands on the switch and usher in their authoritarian regime, they're not going to extend that courtesy. They're not going to come to anyone's rescue over principles like freedom of speech or the right to keep and bear arms because they have no principles. Let's remember, Orwell was, in fits and starts, a socialist, but he understood things in the big picture kind of way. And if the left ever get their totalitarian state, this quote sums it up. The totalitarian states can do great things, but there is one thing they cannot do. They cannot give the factory worker a rifle and tell him to take it home and keep it in his bedroom. That rifle hanging on the wall of the working class flat or the laborer's cottage is the symbol of democracy. It is our job to see that it stays there. So if we're talking about left-wing authoritarianism or the stochastic terrorist definition that the right wing is also an authoritarian regime, the right-wing faction that is in control right now doesn't have a problem with you taking that rifle home and keeping it on the wall of your bedroom. Because to him, democracy is not a threat. So if we're truly looking at who's authoritarian and who isn't, I submit to you, sir or madam, that that is the single most valid principle. The left is just getting on board with the importance of the Second Amendment. We've known it overwhelmingly, and we've never wavered from it. We have always encouraged the private ownership of firearms, and that by itself prohibits us being, by definition, of even the most devout stochastic terrorist, authoritarian. Your mileage may vary. In any case, the time for talk is long since done. As I spoke of last week, if you do not choose your alliances will be chosen for you. God bless us all going forward. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and I cannot stress this enough, certainly not employers. That's for the sake of you Docs Happy Antifa crowd. You tried it before, you failed. Good luck. In any case, the aforementioned opinions have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to forcibly stretch open that unwilling maw and force feed you fistful after fistful of truth cock until your eyes rupture and bleed, or until they finally come open and you see the light. And either way, mission accomplished. Welcome back, boys and girls. It's time once again for the Sunday sermon. Hope you had a good weekend. Looking like y'all got a lively conversation going on over here in the comments. We're going to jump into that, see who all's on board for the roll call right now, man. Everybody in for the drum roll. Where's the fire at, people? Come on. Hard charging out of the starting gate as we come reeling and rocking every single Sunday, with a few notable exceptions. Talking about it's time for the sermon, the bumper music from the one and only Red Desert gut stomping rock and roll band from the smoldering embers and crumbling ruins of the once great American city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, now known as Ground Zero. The name of the band is Red Desert. The name of the track is Older No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. I'm kind of feeling it this week. Let's see how it turns out. Get over here for the roll call. Brother Clem taking the gold. Good to see you, brother. I'm going to be back in San Marcos this week, brothers. So hopefully we get some more FaceTime. We'll be talking about it later. Let me see. Brother Roman taking the silver medal. Yes, sir. The OG center sister herself, the divine Miss Emmy. Mwah. Good to see you on board, sweetheart. Glad you made it out. Let's see which one of the usual suspects, who else has turned out. Chief, you're here. Am I early or late to the party? You were right on time, as always, Chief. And I saw that your little warrior sister, Miss Alicia, had a birthday just a couple days ago. Made sure to extend the proper greetings and salutations. Brother Dennis Weimer on board, OG Reverence Ranger and Prophet of Doom from way, way back in the early 90s. Let's see which ones of the other usual suspects are here. Gonna be expecting quite a few people, and it looks like you guys had a lively little conversation before I showed up, man. Running it right up to the last second with show prep because I wanted to make sure that I had everything geared up. I've got all my bullet points. I'm probably going to have to do some work on the keyboard. I actually brought some notes this week, so I guess that's going to make it a little bit more serious just by nature, but we'll see how it pans out. Let me see, man. Deacon Mark on board. Good to see you. Sitting on the back porch with his lovely wife, Miss Ida, participating in some adult sodas and some smokable consumables, and good on you both for doing so. Here's Brother Joel Allen Jackson from the Midwest on board, surviving the weather, cleaning up the dinner dishes. Yes, sir, man. Get a little bit of that weather all the way down here in the Lone Star State this week, man. I was actually surprised to see it. Had to go grab a U-Haul trailer and tow that from Amarillo down to Hereford with all that ice on the ground. Pleasure, real treat there. Check it out, man. Ain't seen you in a minute, brother. The mighty Stone, the man with the hashtag Live the Three. Good to see you on board, Brother Stone. Preacher George making it out. So how's everyone holding up? Dude, we're doing fantastic down here, but I get a little bit better lead than most people because I'm used to it up on the home front. This is nothing new to me, but predictably, a lot of people in Texas are losing their minds. Not so much really in the Panhandle because, the Panhandle is not a stranger to snow. So it works out pretty well. Everybody seems to be handling it well. I hadn't heard of any major malfunctions, so there's that. The Sultan of Sarcasm himself, Joey on board. Roman, Miss M, Preacher, Dennis, Clem, Stone, Pearson, and anybody else I don't currently see in the magic mirror. Don't bogart the brain cell, yo. There is Tom. Tom, I knew you were going to be here. You want to know why? Because I did that Matt Walsh soundbite, and I knew that you were like hanging in the background going, man, F that guy, freaking Matt Walsh. And I get it, bro. I get it. It was just, it was the right soundbite for the opener, and so that's what we decided to run with. And believe me, I understand your problems with Mr. Walsh, dude. One of the most milquetoast white boys ever on the planet. If that guy is the face of right-wing extremism, I submit to you, sir, madam, that term just doesn't mean anything anymore. But there's that. What is that, Mike? Still find it hard to believe this hill is the left prepared to die on, fighting to keep people here. Oh, brother, it's so much worse, man. Literally fighting for the destruction of the United States. I absolutely agree, man. We're going to be getting into it. Check it out, man. Treasure Mike. Brother Jeff Truitt. We go all the way back to grade school together, man, me and Jeff. We got that scripture lesson that Brother Jeff is responsible for making a part of the program. We're going to be getting into that like early on, and we're going to be getting into what's really going on with the church tax, what the historical precedents are, and what it ultimately leads to. And again, speaking of Daily Wire, speaking of Walsh, that came by way of Michael Knowles, another milquetoast white guy, right wing extremist, but it was on point. There we go, man. So I'm glad you made it out, Jeff. Check it out, man. If Roman's here, that means Carrie's here. And what do you know? Brother Vargas, in the words of it, in the, Vargas, this is why we love you, bro. This is why we love you. Outstanding, man. I was hoping our brother GW West was going to make it out, but I don't see him. Look at this, man. The lovely wife herself. Man, this is fantastic. You're not late, but I'm glad you listened, sweetheart. Glad you made it out. Let's go ahead and fade out this bumper music coming to the end right here. Yeah, man. Older, no wiser. From the band Red Desert. Again, those guys are from Minneapolis, and they are really cool. They have let me use that bumper music. They've let me use that track for bumper music for the going on 6 years that we've been doing the sermon now. And they have never asked for a single royalty. They've never said, hey, man, can you tone down the politics? None of that, man. They were like, hey, roll with it. It's cool. So take care of the people that are taking care of the program, download some of their music, pay for some of their merch, and check out some of their stuff, man. I mean, they're a really cool rock band, gut stomping rock band. Um, are they Doom? Are they Desert? Are they, whatever? I'm not going to get into all that set trip and stuff. Just go listen to them, man. You just heard the opening track. That one's called Older No Wiser. Let me see. You got Lust Queen. You got a bunch of just really gut stomping tracks, man. They're a good band that I found quite by accident. And they've been cool enough to let me use that as bumper music without having to pay royalties or anything. So again, take care of the people who take care of the program. Buy some of their merch, download some of their music. They're good guys. I dig it. That you were looking at right down here, that is the lovely wife. Workbound, hands free. Sorry, I'm late listing. Well, I'm glad you made it out, hon. And thank you. That's my biggest supporter and my number one fan right there, the lovely wife, Miss Charlie. Let me see if I missed anybody. Good gracious, man. This roll call, man. You guys went quite a distance with this conversation here, man. And the people are just rolling in, man. You got a lot of faces. Oh, right. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Stone. Glad you liked the opener, man. Nicholas Mills. Oh my goodness. You made it out, brother. You made it. I hate like hell that we missed each other in transition. Maybe once I get everything wrapped up here, we'll be able to actually have a decent phone conversation. But I'm glad that you made it out, bro. Nick and I worked on placeholders together years and years ago, another Mel House project. Hilarious stuff. And Nick is a really good guy, family man, teacher, just good guy all the way around. Check it out. Roger made it out. Right on. Present. Everybody waving their hands. Present here. David made it out. My goodness, man. We have quite the crowd, man. We've got like all the usual suspects and then some. Check it out. Joe Wiz, I'm late. You're not really late, bro. You're not really late. You missed a little bit of the opener, and believe me, brother, there's going to be plenty more fire. Plenty more fire coming your way. I have to confess, Bart, you are a humble man. Probably can't believe this, and I hate humbling myself, but I'm quite envious. Brother, there's nothing to be envious of, brother. There's nothing to be envious of. I am just a vessel, dude. I'm just a vessel. That's it. I happen to have a gift of gab, and I try to put it to work for my nation and my blood and for the kingdom. And that's it. That's it. That's what I do. Brother, listen, careful what you wish for. I'll say that. Careful what you wish for. The life that I had is because I decided that I was going to have the life that I create rather than the one that I settle for. And those tools are well within your hands, brother. They're well within your hands. I am nothing special. And believe me, for as legitimately blessed as I am and the way that I present, there's nothing particularly special, man. There's nothing particularly special. The only thing is that I just found my spine and let my balls drop and said, hey, man, I'm just at the end of how many times have you heard me say it, man? At the end of the day, I'm just a crane operator with some opinions, right? That's it. But I let my balls drop and decided to put those opinions out on Front Street. And lo and behold, check that out. We've got some common ground with a whole lot of people, and that's cool. Watching from Kenya. Okay. Did not expect that, but all right. Legit, man. Legit. So I'm glad that you guys are having a good conversation over here in the comments. That is what I look for. I look for the community. I look for people to find like minds and kindred spirits. Dude, we're not always going to see things the same way. Sometimes it might vary from minute to minute. But as I was saying about Orwell, the important consideration is that intellectual honesty, that you may have a deep rooted opinion, that you may just have your teeth in it, and just be like, no, man, I'm not wavering, blah, blah. But if you get something that genuinely conflicts and shows you that based on this new information that you could have been incorrect in that assessment, there was no shame in going, dude, I was wrong. That's how you grow. And getting back to what you were saying, brother, that's also that's also a thing, man. The way that I've come to a point where I'm so often right now is that I had the balls to admit when I was so often wrong, and just, okay, yeah, because, and you guys know this, and maybe depending on the time flow and how the conversation goes, because again, this is just a rant. Maybe I'll revisit, because there was a point in my life where I was hard left, bro. There was a point in my life where I was hard left. Every one of these maggots on the ground in Minneapolis, I was one of them. I got my head split outside the Republican National Convention in Houston, Texas in '92, protesting cops and protesting Bush and all that other stuff. Oh, okay. Good check, brother. Good check. Good check. Drop that. There's a carpenter's kid from Nazareth who considers you special. Don't insult his opinion. And okay, fair enough. How about we state that a little bit better, Chief? There was nothing special about me that was not gifted to me by the boss man and the carpenter, right? In fact, in the middle of that epiphany, he pointed that out to me. There's nothing special about you but the gifts that you've been given, and you have put them to work to aggrandize yourself. I need you to put it to work for the kingdom. And that hit me hard, man. Yeah. Yep. Yep. There you go. Yep. Well, early '90s, because by the time we had gotten around to probably '95, I was like right leaning libertarian. But that's something, man. That's something that people don't know about me, man. And that's why when I'm speaking from a position, particularly when I comment about things like Antifa, right? Because I was Antifa before it was called Antifa, and before it was known publicly in general parlance by that term. We were Black Bloc. I was running with guys like La Resistencia, like the Revolutionary Communist Party. There's a fellow named Travis Morales who was like the dude that basically incited the Moody Park riots in Houston. And me and him were coffee buddies, man. Like legit. But even then, bro, um, even then, there was something that set me apart. Travis used to say, man, Bart, I don't understand you, man. You've got so much planted on the left, but you've got 1 foot planted on the right. And I would always tell Travis, that means that both of my feet are planted on the ground, bro. You know? So as far left as I was leaning, I didn't completely go over to the dark side, but I know who those people are, right? I know the chicken hawks like Travis that run those organizations. I know the mentality. I know the way that these people train for optics. When you always see it's like, oh man, the cops just stoned into peaceful protesters. No, literally, man, literally, they rehearse this stuff. The Black Bloc guys, which are now Antifa, they get in behind the legit peaceful protesters and they huck stuff over the heads of the peaceful protesters, like rocks and bottles and stuff like that, to try to provoke the police. And when the police go charging in, the optics with the cameras and everything, they see the police charging into a crowd of peaceful protesters, when in fact it was the hard left guys that incited that deliberately. They practice this stuff, bro. Like, when people try to sell me the cover stories, it falls on deaf ears, because I knew all of them and I wrote half of them. It's nothing to me. So I know who they are. What is that? Bart, what were you saying there, brother? Bart getting his head split. Ow, something bit me. Yeah, okay. that's okay. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Let me get the sponsor shout outs out of the way real quick so we can really get into the meat of this thing, man, because I got a lot of stuff and I want to open particularly with the scriptural ends of it, man, because it really, really ties it in here. Quick sponsor shout outs, first of all, to Roman and his lovely wife, Carrie, and Roxy and Allie, and a bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. Beautiful, tasteful watercolor work, tastefully done, creatively done, and just a really really creative human being, and also quite the writer. You can find him Opium Tales on Substack, where he is kicking ass and taking names over there, man. If you haven't checked out his Substack account, I'm also on Substack if you want to check that out. um in any case, in fact, let me put my Substack up here so you guys will actually be able to see that. Here we are. That's me on Substack. And Opium Tales is also on Substack, and you want to check him out. He's been a strong supporter of me and the program from day one. Again, you've got beautiful watercolor work of beautiful naked women and testosterone driven commentary on Planet Bart. That is a trifecta. So check him out over at opiumtales.com. Check him out on Amazon. Roman Riva. He's got Roman Freely, which is a collection of his watercolor work, and he's got short fiction going on over there too. Also, over at Amazon, you're going to want to check out one of my Viking brothers talking about Casey Tellison. Casey and Dusty Tellison over at Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest, period, bar none. Sit down, shut up, you're wrong. They are it, man. The only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest, talking about Nordic Smoke Barbecue. The Long Ship, their big smoker trailer, is sailing the asphalt seas. They're doing catering gigs, kicking off the new year. If you are in the Spokane area, you definitely want to check them out. Dusty has taken over the pitmaster responsibilities there at Nordic Smoke. Casey has moved on to bigger and better things. He is now past the bar in Washington State. He is a practicing attorney. I have him on retainer. You probably should too if you were in the Washington area. And should also point out that he is an author extraordinaire. He's got a book available on Amazon called Freaks of a Feather. Published by Latop Press out of Spokane, Washington. It's available on Amazon. It is a combat memoir that began as a suicide note. That should be all the lead I should need to give it. That should legit be all the lead I need to give it. A combat memoir that began as a suicide note. He is a phenomenally gifted writer. Again, the name of that book is Freaks of a Feather. And Nick, if you're here, I know you're a reader. You should check it out and see what kind of intellectual brutes that I have in my circle these days. But I am glad you made it out, brother. Let me get a sip of liquid enthusiasm real quick, and we'll jump on into the middle of this thing. One more shout out. They're not a paid sponsor, but Iron Infidel, this battle bottle, is like one of the most essential pieces of kit that I keep on me on a daily basis. This thing is a fantastic piece of kit. Keeps the hot stuff hot, keeps the cold stuff cold. Got a spot for your wallet, got a spot for your phone, got a spot for your keys. So if you got to go to the gym, you don't have to carry a gym bag. You have this one-piece unit filled with the adult beverage of your choice, and go with it. That is Iron Infidel. And the name of the product is the Battle Bottle. So how about we jump into it first with the Bible study part of it. Let me take you back once again, man. Brother Jeff Truitt, and I'm glad that he's here. Jeff Truitt, Treasure Monk on YouTube. Jeff and I have been friends since grade school. He has carved out an extraordinary life for himself. He's a really remarkable individual, and he's had quite the adventure. He's been a Navy corpsman. He's been a medical officer on details with private military contractors, including guys that protected State Department guys. He's got trigger time in multiple time zones. The guy has been a rig medic. He's been a medic up in Alaska, in remote Alaskan wilderness. The dude is an interesting cat. And again, he's been a friend of mine since grade school. And he pointed out to me, hey, after the murder of Charlie Kirk, when that revival started happening, people started coming back to the faith. He said, hey, man, do you do a Bible study online? And I was like, no. And I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me. And he says it would have come to me eventually. I'm not so sure. But starting that week, we started incorporating scripture, and we made it a part of the program for every one of the sermons. And so I thank Jeff for that. Because the first thing that we're going to do, this week comes from 2 Corinthians. And this is the thing, as I've gone on and lamented, is that People are having the wool pulled over their eyes. You got otherwise good intentioned individuals who are being led into really, really bad and stupid things because of twisted ideologies. Second Corinthians, if you guys are familiar with, if you're familiar with the Bible in particular, particularly familiar with Paul's letters, Paul's first letter to the church at Corinth was scathing, to say the least, because um, they were out of control, man. You had, I remember the verse from First Corinthians where you got fornicators, the behavior of which is not even seen amongst the Gentiles, like that kind of stuff. It was bad, man. They were totally out of control, and it was making the faith look bad. And he dressed them down pretty hard. The second letter to the church at Corinth is a little more forgiving. It's kind of like bringing everybody home. In fact, I'm revisiting Second Corinthians right now. That's what Boss Man's got me in this week. But in any case, Second Corinthians chapter 4. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. And going into verse 4, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. All right? If our gospel be hid, right? And that is one of the reasons why they try to deny and obfuscate and minimize. That is why they try to tell you what a real Christian is versus their definition of fake Christian. There is nothing more infuriating to me than a non-believer trying to tell me based on their assessment of hippie Jesus that I'm being a bad Christian because I'm not following their idea of what a proper Christian is supposed to be. It's like this. Yet there's a lot of truth that is spoken in these silly little memes. Churches are supposed to harbor criminals and communists. I have no idea what I'm talking about, nor am I a member of any church. I'm a single mother on SSRIs, so you must listen to me. Dude, as of not too long ago, I had a guy who is a legit practicing Satanist who decided he was going to front himself out on an internet forum and say that I was being a fake Christian. Okay, bro. Legit, you and Mr. Morningstar, go ahead and take that on up with the carpenter, bro. But you're falling on deaf ears here. They have to obfuscate it. They have to confuse it. They have to cherry pick. The big three: turn the other cheek, judge not lest you be judged. There's one other one. The big three that are misrepresented and quoted out of context to paint their picture of the hippie Jesus or whatever Jesus needs to be to fit their narrative when they are not bound to the faith in any way, shape, or form. They think it's all fairy tale nonsense, but they will quote it out of context to try to mislead. But the fault of that is not on them. They are they are their father's children, and the work of their father they will do, right? And I'm talking, of course, about the father of lies. They are going to do the work of their master. You can't blame them for misleading Christians. Who I blame is us, because we don't impart the wisdom. So when they put these false doctrines in front of Christians that sound perfectly plausible because that Christian has never really been in the Word. He's a milquetoast Marty Christian. He goes to Sunday service, but he's not in the Scripture. He doesn't read. He's got no personal walk with Christ. He's got no prayer life. And because of that, when they come with these ridiculous notions, that a whole lot of Christians are like, they're literally doing the right thing, even though they don't know they're doing the right thing. And they let these non-believers lead them astray because they're not grounded in the Word. They don't know, right? So that's not on them. Demon's going to demon, right? We have a responsibility to bring the Word in context. We have a responsibility to put to rest this hippie Jesus. Yes, Christ is grace. Yes, Christ is mercy. But this presentation of Christ as all love, all mercy, no wrath, no consequence is utterly false, right? You remember when the prostitute is about to be stoned to death? Here's the example that I always come back to. He who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. And they all drop their rocks and they walk away, right? And he walks up to the woman. Now, does he say, yeah, you go, girl, female empowerment. That's a great thing you're doing. Don't let anybody tell you how to live your life. You do you, baby girl. No. I've spared your life. Now go and what? sin no more. It's an incomplete picture of the carpenter that they're presenting, and it's on us. It's on us because we haven't held our brothers and sisters in Christ to account. That was from the letter to Corinthians. Now I got a couple more for you. This one from the book of Matthew, chapter 3. But when he saw many of the Pharisees and Sadducees come to his baptism, he said unto them, O generation of vipers, who hath warned you to flee from the wrath to come? Ooh, boy, that sounds like a real pacifist kind of fella, doesn't it? Again, all hippie Jesus, no consequence. I bring not peace but a sword. I bring not peace but division. I bring not peace but conflicts. Judge not lest ye be judged. No, judge with a righteous judgment. And that carries me into the next part that I'm going to bring from Matthew. And this is something that's going to play into some of the things we're going to be discussing for the rest of the program. Matthew chapter 7, verse 3. And we all know this one, don't we? Why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Oh, how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye. Thou, finish it, thou what? Thou hypocrite. First cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Judge not lest ye be judged, out of context. He clearly says, judge with a righteous judgment. The problem is not with judgment. The problem that Jesus had was not with judgment. The problem that Jesus had was not with admonition. The problem that Jesus had was not with telling people that they needed to do better, that they needed to turn from this behavior. The problem was hypocrisy. When he took it to the Pharisees, and again, modern church, pharisaical. That's my college word. I got like 3 of those. The pharisaical behavior of modern churches and their leaders is arguably the single biggest threat to legitimate Christian doctrine. What did Christ do to the Pharisees? He called them out, and it was 2 things. Always the same 2 things. Liars, hypocrites. Liars, hypocrites, liars, hypocrites, and the occasional den of vipers, but always liars and hypocrites. And for all the talk of hippie Jesus, that carpenter from Nazareth had no patience with lies and hypocrisy. And that is the stock and trade that the left exercises and runs on now. These are things that need to be examined, and we're going to, particularly when the stakes are so high. Everybody looks at that church attack. First of all, the guy that pulled that off, this Kelly guy, who was in it with Don Lemon and everything else. You guys saw when he walked into the church, right? But it's not just the church part of it that was the problem. He did a video just a little bit later on that day, right? Or perhaps earlier. I can't remember. But both videos you could find online, where he went into a mosque, a Somali mosque in Minnesota, and talked about, those white supremacist Christians, those rich ass white people this, white people that. Let me remind you what this guy looks like. Check out the complexion one more time just to make sure we have it. Yeah. Damn stupid white people, comfortable white people. Okay. So anyway, just a reminder, he walked into a Somali mosque and lamented the tragedy that the mosque was empty because that Somali community was living in fear because of ICE and their enablers, those white supremacist Christians. How dare they want a safe community? How dare they want not to be defrauded of billions of taxpayer dollars. How dare they wish to not be in a congressional district? Let me remind you again, a congressional district with more terror investigations ending in that congressional district than any other congressional district in the entire country, all coming out of those Somali mosques. All of it. Now, for all you milquetoast Martys and milquetoast Marys out there that really just wish that we could all just get along, and how it's downtrodden people just coming here for a better life, and why can't we all just smile? This is why, because you have a fundamental misunderstanding of what we were up against. This is not a difference of opinion. This is not a difference of faith. This is a difference in culture. Note that I'm saying culture and not race. The race is coincidental. Important, but coincidental. It is the culture of these people. What do you mean the culture, man? No, the right-wing dog whistle. Let me just throw some facts out for you, right? Because again, the biggest part of it is misinformation. These people don't understand what they're dealing with here. Number one, they're almost exclusively Muslim, and a type of Islam that is sworn to world domination and the elimination of the West and the elimination of the Christian faith. Leaving that aside, female genital mutilation. Literally, look this up, fact check me. 97% of Somali women have undergone FGM, have had their clits cut out and their vaginas stitched shut. 97%. That is not a right-wing talking point. That is a fact and a cultural marker. Cousin marriage is not only acceptable, but encouraged. And their baseline average IQ is 68. 70 is the benchmark for retardation. Their average intelligence quotient is 68. Now, if you know anything about how averages are figured, that means half of them are dumber than that. But yet they were criminal masterminds enough to put together this fraud ring? No. They were the instruments that were used to facilitate it, and they were happy to play along. You cannot bring a culture like that into an industrialized Western nation. They have no place here. Trump may be indelicate, but he's factually correct. They have no place here. None. Cousin marriage and cutting the clits out of infant girls and stitching their vaginas shut. If that is your culture does not belong here. Oh, but we can elevate them. Right. Nearly 80% are on welfare. But after 10 years of living here, the ones who have lived here since the early 90s, after that, the total of people on welfare goes down to, the same 80%. Spare me, nation of immigrants. Spare me, melting pot. Spare me all of that. You need to look at the factual realities and say, hey, if you feel that way, cool, you feel that way. But understand that your opinions are rooted in emotion, not facts. And your emotions are going to get people killed. I've gotten way off topic. This is legitimate Christian behavior here. The clergymen. Now, granted, some of those clergymen may be closet communists. I don't care. It's irrelevant to me. If this is what protests look like, no one would have a problem with it, and no one would be getting killed. And these people think that there is no reason to feel threatened by these people and this person, because they're just demonstrating inside a church. I need to give you a little historical perspective on that. And I'm going to do something here that I don't normally do, and that's I'm going to read something verbatim. And this is courtesy of Michael Knowles. I have already fact-checked it. I encourage you to do exactly the same thing. because now that they have stepped it up into churches. Recently, this is Michael Knowles. Recently, a leftist mob in Minneapolis invaded a church, stopped the service, and harassed the Christian congregants until they were forced to leave. Forced, not asked. Many people were shocked by the antics. The mob, in this case, said that they were protesting the deportation of criminals and the enforcement of federal immigration law. So, why would they try to target a church? The answer is simple. Leftists always target the church. This has been true going all the way back to the very origin of the political left in the French Revolution. Did you guys know that that was where the term left and right came from? Yeah. Which side of the Assembly Hall? The term first appeared in 1789 when members of the French National Assembly divided themselves between the left and the right of the hall. As Baron Degreville described, we began to recognize each other. Those who were loyal to religion and the king took up the position to the right of the chair so as to avoid the shouts and oaths and indecencies that enjoyed free reign among the opposing camp. In other words, they've always been exactly as they are now. Almost a quarter millennium later, not much has changed. After the leftists won the revolution, they embarked on a campaign of dehumanization, destroying thousands of churches, looting religious property, and forcing priests and nuns to renounce their vows when they weren't being murdered en masse. When French socialists briefly overthrew the government again and established the Paris Commune in 1871, they quickly closed all churches in the city, desecrated religious sites, and executed the archbishop along with dozens of other clergy. Churches fared even worse after the Russian Revolution when the Bolsheviks implemented state atheism, stole church property, shuttered over 40,000 monasteries. This is all Orthodox, by the way, and churches, and executed thousands of priests through particularly sacrilegious methods, such as boiling in tar and the consumption of melted lead in mock Holy Communion and in some cases, outright crucifixion. At the same time, communists in Mexico had long sought to destroy the church in that country, and in 1921, an employee of the president, Luciano Perez Carpio, infamously placed a bomb beneath the tilma of Our Lady of Guadalupe, a then 400-year-old garment that had converted some 10 million natives to Christianity thanks to what believers considered to be a miraculous image of Mary. The bomb exploded, but the tilma, you want some miraculous intervention here for those of you that don't believe and feel about this however you want. The bomb exploded, but the tilma, which naturally should have already disintegrated centuries earlier, managed to survive intact. Even as the bomb destroyed the altar steps and bent brass candlesticks after the smoke cleared, a twisted brass crucifix was left appearing to hug the artifact as if to protect it. Perhaps a second miracle. Nonetheless, Mexican leftists eventually did succeed at closing churches, barring religious displays, and executing hundreds of priests. It always starts simply. A few years later, their communist cousins over in Spain unleashed their own red terror against Christians, destroying thousands of churches, raping nuns, and murdering upwards of 7,000 priests, monks, and nuns, often by burning them alive. In the early days of the Spanish Civil War, leftist regime supporters posed for a photograph, firing rifles at a statue of Jesus in a mock execution. There's nothing to it, though, man. They're just busting into churches. Slippery slope is a fallacy, right? Remember, they blew up what remained of that monument with dynamite the following month. From the end of World War II until the fall of the Berlin Wall, leftists in Central and Eastern Europe imposed atheism, sending tens of thousands of clergy to prisons and labor camps where they were frequently tortured and killed. But all of that was child's play compared to the Chinese communists of the era, who imprisoned and killed, wait for it, an estimated 700,000 Christians, including tens of thousands of priests and pastors, and publicly executed missionaries. In North Korea, about to lose it here, got my old guys. In North Korea, during that time, the Kim regime sent hundreds of thousands of Christians to labor camps to be tortured and starved. In Vietnam, communists shuttered churches and imprisoned clerics. In Cambodia, communists under Pol Pot endeavored to exterminate religion entirely as they claimed to reset history. History which had previously been measured in the years Anno Domini, the year of our Lord, resetting it to year zero. Wonder where that term came from. From the French revolutionaries who had abolished Christian dating and declared year one on the first Vonier. And how could the French left do otherwise? For years, the French had been reading Diderot, who proclaimed, man will only be free when the last king is strangled with the entrails of the last priest, and Voltaire, who said of the church, crush the infamous thing, and later, Haber, who demanded that the National Assembly, quote, declare openly that the priests are your enemies. Haber would go on to lose his own head in the reign of terror that he had championed, as did Robespierre. These are patterns on the left that continue throughout history. But it's that historical denial. The same thing. Every communist regime that fails. Oh, that wasn't real communism. Okay. Habar would go on to lose his own head in the reign of terror that he had championed. That's how leftist revolutions end if they're not stopped where they begin, which always seems to be with a mob taking a church. Boom. A lot of you think I'm exaggerating. A lot of you think I'm being hyperbolic when I say to you that what we are looking at is no less than a war between good and evil. When I say to you that this unholy alliance between the political left and radical Islam, which is like saying wet water, this unholy alliance between radical left and radical Islam is bent on the complete undoing of Christendom, the complete undoing of the Christian faith, and the complete undoing of Western civilization. Period, full stop. This is not a we hope to get there eventually. These are the stated goals. When they tell you who they are, believe them. Oh, well, there you go, Bart. I guess you must be one of those Trumpers now. No. I can have every ideological problem in the world with Darth Cheeto, the Mango Menace, and everything that he presents, and still be able to analyze what a real threat to the West is. It is this all or none thinking that creates the problem in the first place. Nuance is dead. Fully believe that. Doesn't mean that I want it that way, but it does mean that I am compelled by a sense of intellectual honesty and ideological consistency to call it what it is and to be willing to fight it with every fiber of my being. This is what the people on the left do not understand. This is what these beautiful souls and let me just say a little something, man. Alex Pretty may not have been that guy. Alex Pretty strikes me as a shit starter, right? But I think when you look at Alex Pretty and you look at Renee Good, you're looking at two different people. Both had their heads twisted up by the same ideology. And it manifested itself based on their personality. I don't celebrate the deaths of the ones that are being misled. I don't get any satisfaction from the deaths of the people who are doing the misleading. But damned if I lose any sleep over it. You are of your father the devil, and the work of your father you shall do. He is a lie from the beginning. He is a lie and the father of it. Lies and hypocrisy. There is no logic in any of this. You have to understand that these same people. Here's an example. Queers for Palestine. Prepositions are important. Prepositions are important. It is queers for Palestine because there are not any queers in Palestine. But I got to give the left their due. And this is something that I have called Christians and conservatives to task on. These people can literally overlook the fact, like the Queers for Palestine crowd, the alphabet people can overlook the fact that these Muslims that they support as a matter of doctrine and a matter of practice and a matter of law in Islamic countries, behead them. But evangelicals don't want to break any bread with Mormons because of some magic underwear. Do you want to know why we're losing? There it is. They are looking at the long game, and they fully intend to win. And if they lose, they are fully prepared to bring down brick by brick every manifestation of civilization around them by fire or by lie or by terror or by bullet or by ballot. I'm not saying that these rank and file people, you take a look at a group like this, right? What percentage of them do you think are hardcore leftist, communist agitators? Probably not many. Few, dozen, the outside. Doesn't matter. How many Germans were ardent Nazis? What was the body count? How many Chinese were devout Maoists? What was the body count? How many Cambodians were devoutly behind Pol Pot in the beginning? What was the body count? The ideology is what must be destroyed. Completely and utterly. We have a rare opportunity to do that. Nothing is going to change the minds of the people who are already aligned one way or the other. Nothing. Getting back to stochastic terrorism, I have a few bullet points that I definitely want to touch on and definitely want to get to. Let me roll it on down here. This is the misguided reaction and the misguided motivation of a lot of these very, very, very good-hearted people. A tale of two protests and a tale of two protesters. This, I'm going to keep coming back to this. This is exemplary behavior. And I don't even care so much about their ideology. I am sure that at least one of them is a closet Marxist, or at least has Marxist leanings. It doesn't matter. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I could be totally projecting. But what I see are people kneeling on the sidewalk, peacefully, and praying for the strength of their beliefs. And when arrested, they did not fight the cops. And when arrested, they did not resist. They stood, they let the cuffs be placed on them, back of the police car. They got removed. To the hard left, that makes them bootlickers because they're not resisting. To the hard left, they want guys like this doing things like this. That is the issue, and that is the problem. Renee Good. I was sickened by the people celebrating her death. As I was by people that celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. People who have known me for any length of time, they know that my wife is a liberal, not a leftist. Old school liberal. Got a lot of love in her heart. Genuinely believes in the good in people. I don't need to reiterate where I'm at on that, but I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the woman. More to the point, she walks it like she talks it. She's volunteered her construction skills for organizations like Habitat for Humanity. I already know on Habitat, you don't have to, I'm perfectly aware. It's not about Habitat, it's about her. Okay? She has done work with Austin Smiles, going into third world countries and performing surgeries on children that would ordinarily not ever have the possibility of having those surgeries done. She walks it like she talks it. She's exemplary. When she has an issue with something going on in the political world, generally she doesn't demonstrate about it. If it gets to a certain point, I would imagine that if it moved her enough, she would demonstrate within the confines of what would be a legitimate peaceful protest. But to the American hard left today, she's a bootlicker. Let's flip the script. Let's go over to the right. I was a Ron Paul libertarian. 2016, when everything began to shift, I still possess a lot of those small L libertarian leanings. But the Overton window shifted around me. Being a Western chauvinist, being an advocate for Western civilization, furthermore, being an advocate of enforcement of the law, I am compelled to support certain actions. I also happen to be well educated enough on the constitutional principles involved to be able to stick to those ideological guidelines. I know the Constitution. I have a copy of the Constitution that I keep in close proximity and that I read with some frequency, particularly when stuff like this comes up. And the talking heads go on their talking head platforms and talk head. The laws that are being enforced in Minnesota and everywhere else are not outside the bounds of the Constitution. The ways in which they are being enforced are not outside the bounds of the Constitution. So when I see them doing targeted operations, trying to remove Somalis or Mexicans or Venezuelans, I look at that and I say, hey, good job. But now to some on the right, I am also a bootlicker. Apparently, we're just supposed to let everything run rampant and we're supposed to back off enforcing the law the minute one or two people get killed incidentally as a result of their own actions, or it looks bad, gives people a little bobo in their tummy. I submit to you, sir and madam, that if you believe that this is literally Hitler, if you believe that this is literally tyranny, bro, you should either re-examine those words or your understanding of them. This is the third week in a row that I'm going to go about proving a point and hopefully not forget about it before the end of the sermon. I want you to take a look. These are three. Remind me before the end of the program. Also mark what time it is. We're an hour and 23 minutes in. Remind me. It's important. Thank you, James. She has all my respect. Class acting when I may not agree with her beliefs. I have a hard time picturing the woman I saw with a black eye defending those who need it, licking boots. Yes, sir, Chief. Yes, sir. That's not liberal, bar. Those are Christ-like things. Okay. Also fair. Also fair. Treasure Mountain. But Bart, she picked you. Yeah, I know, man. I know. That's Yep. Hot take. Go listen to the Austrian painters' translated speeches, brother. I've got them all. I've got them all downloaded to my iPod. In fact, I have them all downloaded to my iPod. The war between good and evil, based on jealousy and power, has been around since Cain and Abel. Yes, absolutely, absolutely, brother, absolutely. They also said that the priest is ice. I don't know whether he was or not. Doesn't matter to me, even if he is. Even if he is. And they'll come together, Vargas, they'll come together as a community to request mercy from a judge for a guy that raped a 12-year-old because he's not used to the culture here yet. This actually happened. Vargas, it's really important. I really appreciate you bringing that up. I absolutely appreciate you bringing that up. This is the thing. This community, right, this culture, the Islamic Center that he was a part of, it was a rapist. He literally snatched a girl out of a schoolyard, threw her in the back of a car, and raped her repeatedly. And when it came to trial, the Islamic Center, from his community and his culture, sent a letter of support saying that he was having a hard time adjusting to a new culture. That was the words in the letter. You can go and look that up. Happened in Minneapolis. So he turned him loose after a short sentence. What does he do? Gets back out into the community, snatches a 15-year-old, and does the same damn thing. I don't care about feelings anymore. I don't care. We are either going to preserve this nation or we are not. We are either going to bring criminal elements under control or we are not. Getting back to the one from the opener that I knew Tom was going to hate, the Matt Walsh thing. This is the response. This is what we get. This isn't Matt's take, by the way. He's making fun of mostly conservatives. It's really complex. I want it to be enforced, but I just want them to do without using any force, and nobody gets hurt without anything sad or upsetting happening ever. And if the people we're trying to deport, if they don't want to be deported, or if liberal activists don't want us to deport them, then obviously we shouldn't do it. But I'm totally a conservative on the issue. I mean, unless people get really mad at me and then never mind. Please don't yell. I'm sorry. I've lost friends by back in ice. And a lot of it comes down to the perception. Here's an example. The shooting that took place. And God bless the guy. Alex Pretty, guy that got shot by the CBP agent. I have watched people, and I saw this with Renee Good as well. People who are incapable of looking at what's right in front of them and seeing it because they are so tenaciously dedicated to the ideology that they walked in with. The minute the Renee Good incident happened, everybody made up their mind before anything had come out. Everybody made up their mind who was right, who was wrong. And no matter what came out after that, they ran it through that filter to confirm the narrative that they already had fixed in their head. Same thing with Alex Pretty. With Renee Good, I've got friends who I know to be intelligent people of good moral character that after the body cam footage or the cell phone, whether the cell phone or the body cam is in dispute, whatever, that after showing that footage that showed without equivocation that the vehicle had struck him, continued to insist that the vehicle never came anywhere close to him. Now, you can say he could have stepped out of the way and avoided shooting her, and I'd agree with you there. But when you're making up, you don't get to do that. I just lost two more last night. over the Alex Pretty thing because they insisted that 8 cops held him down. I'm not exaggerating. They insisted that 8 cops were holding him down, took the gun out of his hand, and then shot him execution style. Even though I said copy of the video, here's the thing. Only 3 officers had their hands to him at the moment the first shot was fired. This is happening too fast. You cannot determine whether or not that gun was pulled away from him. Any of these things. They stuck to their narrative. And in fact, went further to say Proud Boys posing as immigration agents. There's no conversation to be had with that. All that I want is an honest conversation. Say what you mean. I hate Trump. I hate ICE. I think nobody should be thrown out of the country, and that's how I feel. So F these guys, they're Nazis. Say that. At least we're having an honest conversation. Don't try to paint it up with false narratives. Don't try to paint it up with historical inaccuracies. If we were literally living under a Gestapo police state right now, there wouldn't be one of these people alive. They'd be rolling up in dump trucks. Freaking Soylent Green style. And hauling them away to freaking gulags. We are nowhere close to a police state. Trump is nowhere close to Hitler. ICE is nothing resembling a Gestapo. But because I'm making factual statements that I can articulate, I'm a bootlicker now. Guess I'll just have to get used to the taste of leather. I submit to you, sir or madam, that if that is your analysis of my take on things, you either don't know me or don't deserve to. Perfectly acceptable filter for me. I've made it abundantly clear from the beginning what is important to me and in what order. My faith, my blood, and the West. Everything else falls in line underneath that. Western civilization is God's highest expression on this planet. That may be a controversial thing to say, but that's at least you know where I'm coming from. Western civilization and white European blood created the modern world. That's only controversial because of your emotions. Historically and factually, that is irrefutable. The Christian/Catholic faith has provided the spiritual anchor for Western civilization. Ever since we evolved from being pagan tribes, I realize it is an Abrahamic religion. I realize it is not a European religion, but it has been the spiritual anchor. And I also happen to believe it is literally God's truth. It has been the spiritual anchor of Western civilization. Catholicism and Christianity, spare me your Judeo/anything. That is a falsehood. Oh, now I've said something else controversial that's going to get me in trouble. Don't care. Don't care. Look up the history of the Scofield Bible. There is no pre-tribulation rapture. We are not Judeo-Christian. We are not Judeo anything. Look up what the Talmud has to say about your Lord and Savior. If you're walking in the faith and you are a devout Christian, look up what the Talmud has to say about your Lord and Savior. And tell me again how they are our greatest ally. I know I'm off on a tear here. I really don't care. The focus that I had planned on going with, we left that long ago. Don't care. I'm all over the place right here. I'm just spitting what I know to be truth. And this is the truth. The United States is the last holdout for the West. For white European blood in the West, the United States is the last holdout. Our nations of origin, the nations of Mother Europe, outside of, ironically enough, the former communist bloc countries, have given themselves over voluntarily to Islam and the third world. Given it. This one will bake your biscuits. Why did we bomb? Why did we bomb Iran? Why did we do that? What did they tell us? Right? Thank you, Chief. Does that mean they are wrong in the use of force? No, there was nothing about this that facts in terms of social media. Absolutely, Chief. If I offend anyone, well, it happens. ICE actions have a legal foundation. This is a law enforcement professional, by the way. There's a reason we call him Chief. For those of you that don't know my brother in Christ here, if I offend anyone, well, it happens. ICE actions have a legal foundation. Are some tactics being used questionable related to the current law? Yes. Some of the tactics, and that's a discussion we can have. Dennis, I know where you're going with that. You came off that little over confession that I made in that one post. Yeah, bet. If I'm licking a boot, there is a dominatrix involved, not a bureaucrat. If these friends actually believe that wacko shit, you don't need them. You're absolutely right, bro. You're absolutely right. If I need 627, so about 7, we will know. What is it? Ha! You guys are speculating on what those 3 were, huh? Good guess. No, but close. You're in with the spirit of the experiment. Look at Poland. They are going strong. I'll go you one better, George. Hungary under Viktor Orban. I have someone who is a friend of mine. I don't want to give away too many details because you'd be able to trace it down and figure out who it is. There is someone who is a very prominent leftist who has an in-law who is a friend of mine. And this friend of mine is a prominent right-wing author and journalist and has done some work for some of those countries. I can give you some book recommendations if you guys hit me up in my inbox. We all understand what's really at stake here. Even the ones who may not agree with our politics and our ideology, even the ones who may not be walking in the faith, have to, at this point, realize exactly what's at stake. There is good and evil in the world. There are nations that are adversarial to the United States. China. One could make a case that to a lesser degree, Russia. And while I'm on this, let me just get this quick little sidebar out of the way. The smartest move would have been to try to gravitate to embrace Russia. That would have been the smartest move. Because ultimately, the Chinese are not going to have any mercy on the Russians. The Chinese want domination. The smartest play that we could have made would be to have built diplomatic relations with Russia. It would have taken away the military situation that we are now looking at in Europe. We would have had a further ally as a bastion and a bulwark against the expansion of the Chinese empirical ambitions, let's call it what it is, and against radical Islam. That would have been the smartest damn move that we could have made. But we couldn't. Why? Because the American left wouldn't have it. If the American left could have been bothered to hate the Soviet Russians as much as they hate Putin's Russia, we could have shaved 20 years off the Cold War. This is what is legitimately at stake. China wishes to see our hegemony ended. The only thing they need us for is as a market. And they would just assume that we lose our world power, and they are making efforts to that end. They would subjugate us if they could. Islam wants to see us destroyed. Everything going on with the Somalians right now in Minnesota has its roots in fifth generation warfare, which is another thing that you guys should look up and get used to. Importing the third world at the levels that we did was not by an act of incompetence. It was by design. Not just to replace the electorate, but to undermine the racial and cultural homogeneity. Homogeneity, that's my college word. I got like 3 of those. Of the United States. These are facts. If we do not preserve this nation, it's done. And all of the people, thank you, Joey Bezmenov, absolutely, yep. Look up Yuri Bezmenov if you're not familiar with him. All of these people who are defending these deviant elements. I'm talking about the ones who are defending the illegal migrants. I'm talking about the ones who are defending these fake refugees. I'm talking about the ones who are defending these fake asylum seekers. None of these people are here for asylum. None of these here are here for refugees. None of them. Not one. If America loses and the West loses, they cease to exist. All the alphabet people, done. In a world ruled by communist China, the alphabet people, done. The trans people, done. In a world ruled by Islam, trans people, alphabet people, done. All you women out there smashing the patriarchy because we're so tyrannical. But boy, you love those Muslims, don't you? Do you know what your future looks like under Sharia law? You and your stupid Handmaid's Tale cosplay. You look great in red, mama. Can't wait to see you in a burqa. I care less and less about how people perceive my mindset, my way of thinking. Because if what I advocate does not win, you're all done. Again, feeling like Colonel Jessup, I'd appreciate it if you just said thank you and then went on about your business. I love these people. I loved that ideology so much that I married someone who possessed it. To be able to believe in the good in people, to be able to believe that people are basically good and that what you're doing is trying to make the world a better place and trying to eliminate the most suffering for the most amount of people. The only problem with that is everything that they are doing is completely in contradiction to that. In line with the Thomas Sowell quote that I shared last week, that kind of activism. I wonder if I can even find that. Let me see if I can even find that. I might actually be able to find that quote if I look just real quick. You guys be patient with me. That quote from Thomas Sowell, that the problem with that kind of activism, here we go, boom, there it is, bang, got that. Sorry guys, it's just me and my laptop. I don't have a production crew here. And that's the beauty of it. I want it to have that kind of authenticity. I want it to have that kind of authenticity. Because at the end of the day, man, I'm just a crane operator with some opinions. Let's see if I can add this file. We will find it. There it is. Boom. All right. Show me. Activism is a way for useless people to feel important, even if the consequences of their activism are counterproductive for those they claim to be helping and damaging to the fabric of society as a whole. What are we seeing in Minnesota? This isn't always the type of good-hearted liberal that I'm speaking of. A lot of these people are just empty. They're broken. They're damaged. You look at any set of Antifa mugshots. These are broken, damaged people. Easy to be swept up and be a useful idiot for leftist causes. Always. It's how it always happens. What they don't understand is they're the first people to face the wall. So for those of you guys that think you may be losing the stomach for it, I just want to throw out a couple of things here. You are not in the wrong for supporting legitimate law enforcement activities. You are not in the wrong for wanting people who are a detriment to your homeland to be forcibly removed. You are no more wrong for feeling that way than you are for feeling a little tug at the heartstrings. But I'll tell you something else. The further this goes, you're not going to be wrong when you finally get to that point where you've had enough, where you literally just don't care anymore. I don't want for you to get there. I don't want for any of us to get there. Some of us have already been there for a while, and I get that. Some of you guys think, believe it or not, I've actually been accused of blind optimism for not being black-pilled by this point. And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm the idiot. Maybe it secretly really is run by things that are just above my pay grade. Maybe the gnomes of Zurich and the elders of Zion and the Bavarian Illuminati and the Babbage Society have it all on lock. And this is all just a dumb show and we're all just puppets. Hell, maybe we're even living in a damn simulation. But for right now, this second, I love what I love and I hate what I hate. And even the things that I hate are driven by that love. Wait a minute, Bart, that doesn't track. Let me explain it, bro. I'll break it down for you. The things that I hate are driven by the things that I love. The greatness that this nation became when it was truly living up to its potential and the ideal visions of the founders was a great and glorious thing. The civilization that the West has gifted the world is God's highest expression on this planet. The music, the culture, the architecture, the faith, the strength, the inner drive to explore an entire planet, conquer it, And after having done so, lift up the people that we conquered. No other civilization in the history of the world has done the things that we have done. And to see that happen, only to be brought down from the inside out of some misplaced sense of guilt built on a lie, is beyond reprehensible to me. Know who you are. Know the lineage from which you are descended. Know what your people have done. The glories and the atrocities. Own them. Grow. Advance. Leave it better than you found it. But do not be guilted into denial that there are adversarial forces that seek to undermine everything that has been created by your line. And that these adversarial forces must be eliminated, must be brought to heel, must be utterly crushed. History will make no other allowance. You are not required to think in lockstep or to act in lockstep with any regime. What you are compelled to do out of a sense of intellectual honesty and ideological consistency is admit where you are in that historical timeline. We are at a juncture that will quite literally decide if this civilization stands or falls. If your response to that is to pray that it falls because it's a horrible civilization, then I submit to you, sir or madam, what the hell are you doing here? This is where the transparency of the logical conflicts of the left is most evident. We are such a horrible nation. A brutal, racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, violent nation. So much so that every face on the face of the planet wants to live here. Seems to me a bit self-contradictory. Your mileage may vary. Regardless of how you may feel about the West, regardless of how you may feel about America, this is where we are. Regardless of how you may feel about the historical timeline, this is when we are. But at this point, you better damn well decide what is truly important to you. Again, just to revisit some basic facts. Figure out whether this could all be deliberately pushed. These are the things. It takes 8 seconds of serious processing. If they are untrained and out of control, how come Minneapolis is the only city where we're seeing this? Because of Waltz and Fry and Ilhan Omar. 23% of all ICE arrests occur in Texas, 2.2 in Minnesota, tenfold difference. Yet all that violence is happening in Minnesota because the Democrats are promoting it. You're absolutely damn right. That is exactly what's going on. So that leads to the question of why. Why would you be promoting this violence? Is this some sort of historical altruism? Or are you just running cover for your own diabolical intent? We cannot address the enormity of the situation until we accept the enormity of the situation. To wit, there are adversarial powers outside of this nation that have been waging fifth generation war on us for a longer period of time than any of us are comfortable admitting. There are adversarial powers that are waging this war and have been more successful than any of us are comfortable admitting. And they have achieved that success specifically because of a fifth column inside the United States whose ambitions line up with those adversarial powers and who seek to undermine and destroy this nation on those adversarial powers' behalf from the inside. Once you accept that this is the reality, not only does everything that went before make sense, but everything that comes next is necessity. Chin down, knuckles up. You're already in the fight. The only decision that remains is whether you're fighting to survive or whether you're fighting to win. And I submit to you that if we don't win, we will not survive. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. I'm going to close with a prayer. Heavenly Father, I offer up a prayer for this damaged world. I offer up a prayer for those who have not come to the light of your truth. I offer up a prayer that you use this moment of historical inflection to show people your greatness and to help us as warriors for the kingdom to demonstrate that greatness by both our strength but also by our benevolence. Our strength in being willing to stand for what is necessary and to make no peace with evil. But our benevolence in the sense of not letting our own pride and wrath overwhelm us to the point where we become an enabler of that evil. Help us to get our heads squared away and away from this mentality that we have to rejoice in someone's death simply because they're on the other team. Remind us that these deaths are always a tragedy and to direct our anger where it needs to be directed, and that is the father of lies and his minions on this earth that perpetuate those lies, that steer these good people into these evil things. steer these loving people into these hateful ideologies. It's tough, Lord. It's so tough when you're looking at someone who's standing across from you and wishing you dead, to understand that somewhere in there is a spark of the divine, because you put that in for every one of us. We got to do what must be done, Lord. There's no shirking from that. But when we let ourselves get twisted up to the point where we're getting satisfaction, let alone exhilaration, for a death that could have been prevented, then we're not helping. So, Lord, as I always ask, strength, but more importantly, discernment. A lot of this is above our pay grade, Lord. So we ask a lot more for that discernment, because the lies are so thick. If you want the truth, you got to dig for it. So just remind us to dig. And remind us that when we need strength and when we need truth, there's a book that you left us. Remind us that no matter how dark it gets, we win. But if it has to get dark in the interim, Lord, give us the strength. Give us the strength to weather the storm. Because the worst thing that we'll ever have to face doesn't match up to what you already endured on that cross for us. And help us to be mindful to extend grace and mercy. That's a part of that discernment, Lord. Being able to separate where good people have been driven to evil ends. Got to extend them grace. And it can be tough. Just keep our heads clear and our minds focused. Our chins down and our knuckles up. Fight's already here, Lord. Let us fight it well. And if we are to fall, in the mighty name of Jesus be the last word that crosses our lips. It is in his holy name that we stand before you seeking counsel in prayer. In the name of Jesus, amen. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Definitely time to get your own houses in order, though, regardless of how any of the rest of this pans out. I'm going to pass around that little digital collection plate, guys. If you want to kick down a little bit, I am currently furloughed. This will be the last sermon you will be seeing with this background. I'm going to be furloughed for about 3 weeks, and then I'll be back at work, but I will be doing these from another location. Go ahead and pass around that digital collection plate. If you want to kick something down, if anything that I said helped you out, changed your mind, made you think, pissed you off, whatever it is, you want to drop something in the collection plate, I'm on Venmo, I'm on PayPal, I'm on Cash App, I'm on all that good stuff, and that's totally cool if you want to kick down. If you can't or you're not so inclined, here's what you can do for me. If you dig what I'm laying down, share the sermon on your own social media platforms. If you've got a Facebook page, Twitter feed, whatever, pass it along. Let them know if there's this fat, toothless crane operator with some opinions likes to get down and rant and rave for a couple hours every Sunday. Maybe you'll get something out of it. Pass it along. But here's what you can do. Not for myself, but for yourself. Mike Stone, if you're still here, give it to him. Hashtag live the three, baby. Live the three. Live the three, man. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah. Hold it. Hold it. Stop. Stop. Sound of the record scratching. Last little thing. Those three. You guys have heard a lot in the news lately about kratom and about 7-hydroxymetragenine, 7-ohm. They will tell you that it is morphine. They will tell you that it is poison. They will tell you that it is all sorts of things in an effort to get it Schedule 1 banned. Those three 60-milligram tablets of 7-hydroxy, the stuff that they tell you is 5 times as strong as morphine. The regulated dose in most of these they're buying over the counter is 15 milligram. I just took 3 60-milligram tablets. Am I drooling? Am I stumbling? Am I slurring? Do I look oxyed out to you? Not by a damn sight. Now, I can tell you for the record, I feel great. Anxiety, gone. That nagging pain that I got in my replaced hip and my knees and my shoulder because of the cold outside, which is like single digits right now in the panhandle, gone. I feel great. I'm not drooling. I'm coherent. I'm clear. 3 60-milligram tablets. And y'all had to damn remind me to even bring it up. They're trying to ban this stuff. Another big pharma ploy, by the way, because this stuff is what keeps people off of opioid painkillers. This stuff is what a lot of people are using to withdraw from opiates to avoid having to go on methadone. Thank God we got RFK Jr. in there that's at least putting a little pushback. But yeah, this is the stuff they're telling you is 5 times as strong as morphine. So what's that, 180 milligrams? 180 milligrams of morphine right now? Guess again, Sparky. Respiratory arrest like 20 minutes ago. It's a joke. Stop letting people lie to you. Glad you guys reminded me. All right. So, where the hell was I? All right, let's try it again. So, I'm going to pass around that little digital collection plate if you guys are inclined to kick down a little bit. We're going to go out with Fortunate Son from Clutch, Neil Fallon and Clutch, the best damned cover of that tune you will ever hear. You can feel differently, but you'd be wrong. You're entitled to be wrong. In any case, you guys want to kick something down, I'm on PayPal, I'm on Cash App, I'm on Venmo, I'm on all that good stuff. If you can't kick down, man, just share the program with you guys on your own Facebook pages or whatever. But more over the point, live the 3. Hashtag live the 3. Stone, if you're still here. Live the 3. What is he talking about? I'm talking about the 3 prime directives. Rules for living, Proverbs, rules to live by on Planet Bart. Live the 3. Rule number 1, you're in a world full of noise, and you got to be the signal that breaks through the noise. What is the signal? The signal is the truth. The noise is all the obfuscations. It's all the lies. Obfuscations. That's my college word. I got like 3 of those. Anything that'll bury the truth, that is the noise. You've got to be the signal that breaks through the noise. You got to be light in a world full of darkness, and boy, they love that darkness. They'll try to bury you with the darkness, smother you with the darkness, emasculate you, demoralize, dehumanize you with the darkness. You have got to be the light that refuses to surrender to the darkness. You've got to be that light that carries through that fog in a long-lasting darkness, which brings me to the 3rd rule, the final rule, the iron rule, the prime directive. You have got to be strength in a world full of weakness. And strength is a lot of things. I don't mean just strength. This is great, but it can't just be here. It's got to be here. It's got to be here, and fellas, it's got to be here. You got to find your spine. You got to let your balls drop. You got to be that strength. Why strength? Because without strength, none of the rest of it matters. Without strength, you won't have the punch to get that signal through the noise. Without strength, you won't have the tenacity and endurance to get that light through a long-lasting darkness. So strength above all, man. And when you hit your knees to pray at night, and you should, you pray for that strength. But you also pray for clarity and discernment. Because no matter how strong you are, Father of Lies is always out there looking to trip you up. So you got to have that clarity. You got to have that discernment to know when the noise and when the darkness is trying to overwhelm you, because we can all fall victim, man. It happened to the best of us, myself included. So be aware. Get on your knees at night and pray for these things. Put your face in some scripture and your ass under some iron. And I promise you, your world will be a better place. Boss Man's got the plan. Carpenter's got your back. Let the Spirit work through you. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I love you all. Every one of y'all, man. God bless you. Peace. See you next Sunday, God willing.